The benchmarking of salaries of cabinet ministers to permanent secretaries more generally has existed since April 1st of 1973. That is for 50 years. In 1973, it was $1 per month over permanent secretaries, or $12 a year, and in 1986, it moved to $1 per week, which is $52. So the concept of linking the cabinet members' pay to that of the permanent secretary has existed unbroken for 50 years. Though roles differ, it's a continuous chain from the political directorate to the public sector officers. The political directorate provides strategic direction for the public sector and is therefore part of the delivery of public services through the Jamaican public sector. From the analysis conducted by Ernst & Young, who were consultants to the government on the public sector restructuring, the senior levels in the public sector were the furthest away from market. This is consistent with anecdotal evidence and has been a significant problem that has cost the country. Madam Speaker, if the public sector is unable to retain its leadership or to attract the most appropriate, experienced, and qualified leadership, the entire organization is put in jeopardy. We have to be able to attract new blood into the leadership levels of the public sector, to infuse new ways of thinking, new ideas for the organization's own growth and development. And we also need to attract persons to leadership, whether those persons are internal to the organization. For internal persons, outside of their own ambitions, they need to see that stepping up to leadership is worthwhile. And for the external prospects, they too need to see that making a transition is worthwhile to step into leadership in public sector organizations. Persons need to be encouraged in making career moves into public sector leadership, central government, public bodies, the political directorate, without putting their economic security at total risk. As such, Madam Speaker, there has been significant adjustment to the salary scales for the leadership across the public sector. And bear with me while I just give a few examples. And I've brought some of the salary scales to share. In the police force, the salary scale for the deputy commissioner, before you consider other things, has moved from 9 million to 10.8 million to 14 million to 17 million, effective April 1, 2023. The salary scale for the superintendent was 5.6 million to 6.7 million. And for 2023, that's now 9.5 million to 11.6 million. For the deputy superintendent, who used to be at 3.3 million to 4 million, that's now at 6.2 million to 7.5 million. For the legal profession in the public service, Madam Speaker, the legal officer 6 has moved from 4.9 to 5.9 million, as at April 2021, to 10.1 to 13.6 million. The legal officer 5 has moved from 4.1 to 4.8 to 10.1 to 13.6 million. In the nursing profession, the salary scale in the leadership, Madam Speaker, has moved from, in 2021, 3.5 million to 4.2 million to 9.25 million to 10.995 million as at April 2023. For the second layer in the nursing profession, not just the leadership, it was 3 million to 3.6, and it's now moved to 8.25 million to 9.8 million as at April 2023. For medical doctors, and here I talk about not the consultants who earn much more than the other doctors. They used to be called junior doctors, we just call them doctors today. The salaries before this reform at the highest level of the medical doctor profession, the salaries, were 3 million to 3.6 million in 2021, and we have moved those now to 8.2 million to 9.8 million. The salary scale for medical doctors at the MO2 level were 2.6 million to 3.1 million, and they have moved to 7.3 million to 8.7 million. The salary scale at the MO1 level was 2.2 million to 2.7 million. That's moved to 6.3 to 7.5 million. Madam Speaker, it's necessary because the media hasn't really done it for us, even though the information is public. And I just think in coming to address salaries that we know will gather headlines in the public domain, it is necessary to put out information, Madam Speaker, where we have addressed salaries in the leadership levels of the public sector. And just to continue, Madam Speaker, the salary scale in the teaching profession, Madam Speaker, and I'll spend a little more time on this one, for principals of tertiary colleges, salaries were $4.3 million to $4.9 million, and those have moved to $10.4 million to $13 million, Madam Speaker, for 2023. The salaries for principals of the larger secondary schools used to be $2.9 million to $3.4 million, and those salaries are now $8.5 million to $10.9 million, Madam Speaker. The salary scale for principals of the smallest secondary schools used to be $2.2 million to $2.6 million in April as at April 2021. Those as at April 2023 are now $5.6 to $7.2 million. So 2.2 to 2.6 moved to 5.6 to 7.2. Madam Speaker, the salary scale for secondary school vice principals has moved from $2.1 million to $2.4 million as at April 1st, 2021, and I will provide all this information. I don't want to circulate it now because it will just distract a little bit. But I think members of this House need to be armed with all of this information. Okay? From vice principals from 2.1 to 2.4 million to 4.6 million to 5.8 million dollars as at April 2023. For the larger, and it doesn't stop at the secondary schools, for the largest primary schools, salaries have moved from 2.4 million to 2.6 million as at April 1st, 2021 to 7 million to 8.9 million as at April 1st, 2023. Madam Speaker, salary scales for principals at the smallest primary schools, which used to be 1.7 million to 2 million as at April 1st, 2021, are now 5.6 million to 7.2 million as at April 2023. For the Master Teacher 1, salaries used to be 1.6 to 1.86 million, and now, Madam Speaker, as at 2021, and now as at 2023, they're 4 million to $5.1 million at April 2023. And Madam Speaker, this is just a small sample, just sampling the leadership in the public service. I could go to the leadership in all areas: probation officers, aftercare officers, medical records clerks, etc. Across the public service, Madam Speaker, we have, among other things, moved the leadership of the public service up in compensation because of the findings of the market survey by Ernst & Young, that they were furthest away from market, and out of anecdotal experience, the dire problem we are having in the public service with attracting and retaining the kind of leadership that we need. We have continued to align salaries for these critically important functions with corresponding benchmarks in the administrative public sector, as has been the case over at least 50 years, Madam Speaker, and this alignment will result in significant changes. Madam Speaker, it was bold of the government to undertake this public sector compensation reform in one go across all arms of government, and it is also bold to implement these changes that I've announced today at this time. Madam Speaker, we believe these changes to be in the best long-term interest of Jamaica. It is not about who occupies these positions today. It is about the quality that Jamaica will be able to attract and retain in positions of political leadership at all levels, tomorrow and beyond. This compensation restructure, Madam Speaker, is an investment in our future. We hope, Madam Speaker, that more qualified and experienced Jamaicans will find it attractive and financially feasible to offer themselves to serve their country through the administrative public service or through the political directorate. In this way, Madam Speaker, Jamaica is leading the Caribbean There's no other Caribbean country that's implemented a public sector restructuring of the kind that we have, that has moved compensation levels in the way that we have.